is from another country that's going to be involved in some of the weaving techniques. So that'll be really interesting.
Okay, I just said us, we're live.
From another country that's going to be involved in some of the weaving techniques.
There you go.
Hi, Yasmina.
Okay, we're live and we have quorum. I know Donna will be joining us in a little bit. She's just wrapping up with class, so she'll be jumping in. We do have a little bit of adjustment on the agenda. So with eScribe, I can't add items to the forefront of the agenda, which is where the election of officers should be. So you'll notice that the motion to adopt the agenda was already included as amended. So we're going to start at the beginning with the election of officers. So item 4.1, I'll take care of the first part of the meeting and then I'll turn it over to the chair at that time. So I do need a mover and a seconder. Resolved that the nominations be open for the position of chair of the Cultural Vitality Committee for 2022. Heather? And a seconder? Miranda? Okay. All in favor, if you can either show of hands or do so by using your perfect. That's carried. Just before we take motions, we'll be taking motions from the floor, but Donna, in her absence, has nominated Sean for the position of chair, and I'll be doing a call for additional nominations. So are there any other nominations? And any other nominations? No other nominations? Seeing none, I would need a mover and seconder. Resolve that nominations are closed. Heather? And Katie, thank you. And all in favor? Okay, that's carried. Sean, do you accept the position of chair?
I will, with thanks to my nominator and seconder, and thank you for the vote of confidence, although it would not offend me in the least if anybody else wanted to be chair, but just thank you.
Okay, and then a mover and a seconder. Resolve that S. Meadas was declared chairperson of the Cultural Vitality Committee for 2022. Miranda and Jasmina, thank you. And all in favor? All right, perfect. Okay, the next one. A mover and a seconder. Resolve that nominations be open for the position of vice chairperson of the Cultural Vitality Committee for 2022. Katie and Miranda, thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, are there any nominations for the position of vice chair?
I nominate Miranda.
I second.
I guess before we close the nominations, Miranda, are there any other nominations? Sorry. Any other nominations? No. Miranda, do you accept the nominations?
Yes, with thanks.
So we're going to resolve that the nominations are closed. Mover and a seconder. And then Rashawn and Jasmina, all in favor. Carried. And then a mover and a seconder resolve that Miranda Bouchard was declared Vice Chairperson of the Cultural Vitality Committee for 2022. I have Jasmina and Sean. All in favor? Carried. Okay, there we go. I'm turning it over to Sean.
We're blowing through these nominations.
Yeah, and I believe, Sean, you were copied in the email for the addition of the additional agenda item.
Yes, and I am going to briefly remind myself.
Cultural tourism plan.
Right, an update on the cultural tourism plan, which is going to, also acknowledging I didn't remind myself, Virginia reminded me. Thanks, Virginia. So under new business, we'll have an update on the cultural tourism plan. All right, so the next item on our agenda is the cultural policy status update. I will go back to Virginia to see if there are any new updates on this, or if this is just a legacy item on our agenda.
It's so it's going to be going to City Council. We were hoping to do the February 22nd meeting, but it'll be going to the March 21st meeting. We've been working with finance, so there's going to be a corresponding report from finance, which will kind of outline the financial implications of the 1% contribution. So those two pieces will be coming together. So right now, we've got the policy. We're working on just a few little formatting tweaks. So no changes to the language, but just, making sure that the formatting and the table of contents and everything are lining up all nicely. And then from there, the revision summary, we're just doing a double cross-reference between the old policy and the new policy so that we have the revisions, the main revisions highlighted in the summary document so that it's easy for council to do the comparison between the two, the old and the new policy. So those are just being flushed out, and yes, we'll be submitting those soon.
Great, thank you so much, Virginia. Are there any questions in relation to this item? Or comments? Seeing none, I guess we'll move on. Thank you very much for the update. And we very much look forward to seeing that go before council. And again, my thanks to all of those of you who, and especially the staff for your continued work moving that forward. And all of those subcommittee members who were active in redrafting those policies. So the next item on our agenda is subcommittee and task force updates. So the first one that we have is in relation to community recognition award criteria.
Actually, Sean, Alicia just reminded me. Thanks, Alicia. We didn't do the minutes or the.
Oh, yes.
Really?
Whoops. Okay, so we're going to go back. We're going to. Well, I mean, is it going back if we haven't approved an agenda? We'll let's make an agenda here. Well, first item, I guess, adoption of minutes from last meeting. So this would have been from our January 19th, 2022 meeting. Could I have a mover for the adoption of the minutes? Moved by Jordan, seconded by Miranda. Thank you both so much. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor, please remain silent. Anybody opposed or abstaining, please indicate so in the chat or open your mic to express your intent. Seeing no abstentions or nays, the minutes have been adopted. The next item is the declaration of pecuniary interests. Now, I don't see any decision items here. Wait, do I? Maybe not. Whatever. If there's any pecuniary interests, please let us know now. Seeing none, we will move on to the adoption of the agenda. So just a note on the agenda that you saw before you, we did the election of officers earlier prior to the commencement of, well, it was the first item of business. So that has been resolved, and we heard our cultural policy update. And Larry, I saw that you just joined, so just for your information, that is moving forward to council on for an early meeting in March for a decision by council. So for the remaining items on the agenda, do I have a mover for the adoption of the agenda? Moved by Jordan, seconded by Larry. All those in favor, please. Oh, sorry, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please remain silent. Anybody opposed or abstaining, please indicate so in the chat or open your mic to express your intent. Seeing no abstentions and nays, the agenda has been adopted unanimously. All right, the next item that we have are item number 5. Subcommittee and task force updates. First of all, the community recognition award criteria. Over to you, Virginia.
So I give you an update. We're going to have our first meeting of the task force on tomorrow, actually at noon. In the meantime, Alicia's pulled together and taken a look at the existing criteria. We're also working through the same process with Municipal Heritage Committee to take a look at the criteria and eligibility. So, you know, if it's part of your employment, are you eligible? So they've been doing a full review for that particular award. So we'll be having a look at that, having the discussion on Thursday. And then depending on how far along we get, we're hoping that we'll bring it back to the committee in March, but it may be April, which would be the deadline to approve any updates to the criteria for the award, just because we'll want to be releasing the information and advertising for applications at the very end of April, because the applications are due beginning in June.
Thank you so much, Virginia. Are there any questions or comments on the update? Seeing none, thank you very much, Virginia, for the update. And thanks to the committee members who will be meeting tomorrow. The next item that we have is new business. So the first of these is the Public Art Master Plan. So this was put on the agenda at the request of Councillor Hilsinger. So essentially, as you see in your agenda, this is a discussion item for the committee's consideration related to the public art policy. In Councillor Hilsinger's absence, I can provide a little bit of context because she communicated about it to me. Essentially highlighting that a number of communities throughout Canada have, in addition to establishing public art policies that outline what's considered public art, what public art funds can be assigned to, and things of that character. Many have also established public art plans or strategies that outline precisely, well, much the same thing that we see or a similar approach to what we saw from the community cultural plan, right? Where there are specific actions or milestones that are established for the promotion, production, and installation of public art, and also where there are locations of significant interest, or where there's a significant interest from the cities or other bodies' perspective of installing and promoting public art in that geographic space. So some of the plans that or strategies that exist, there are examples from Mississauga, of course, places like the City of Toronto, but also places that are closer in size to cities like Sault Ste. Marie, and also similar situations, comparable geography, those sorts of things. And even in looking at the strategies that do exist, there are institutions that have established public art strategies as well. For instance, the University of British Columbia has a public art strategy for its campus in Vancouver. So I don't know if you would add anything to that in terms of information about the concept here, Virginia, other than for us to open it up for discussion.
I think you covered off everything, Sean. I think what Donna wanted to bring forward to the committee was just that, to start thinking about it now that we're going to have a public art policy. The next step would really be to look at having that master plan, identifying locations for future installs. We do have, some annual funding now that we're going to be able to allocate towards public art. So what does that plan look like so that we're, we've got targets for each year and how we're going to focus those funds as we move forward. And then if we do obtain additional funding, we know how they're going to be spent, and we have that complete plan to present to council as we're requesting funding moving forward for public art.
Thanks, Virginia. Any questions or comments from committee members? Larry, please.
I am not sure what exactly we're looking at. It's a little bit abstract right now. It's hard to think of in the abstract when you don't know numbers and when the kind of art and the places and the so on. Or is that what we're to come up with? I think the starting place is money. It always seems to come down to money. I hate to say it.
Thanks, Larry. I can address part of your question, but I want to leave it open for others to add as well. Any other comments or questions? Katie?
So if I'm understanding correctly, Virginia and Sean, this would be complementary to the policy that we are currently working on. So this would be after, and it would help to basically achieve public art in places around the community.
That's right. That would be, well, it should be, yes. One hopes. If this is a line of action that the committee wishes to pursue, then the idea is that it would, in a sense, be a plan for how to implement the public art policy in a more, and speaking to your point, Larry, in a more coherent way, in a less abstract manner, right? So identifying particular goals for various years and these sorts of things, locations, that kind of thing. This is a bit, this is purely discussion at this point. So if it's not a big breach of process, what I can do is bring up an example of a plan so that it's a bit more apparent what they do. So the one that comes to my mind was the Mississauga Public Art Policy or Master Plan, I think they describe it as. Yeah, not policy. We've already done the policy. So I'm going to, as I wait for my internet to start cooperating.
Virginia, I have a question on, and Sean, does this committee oversee the public art policy and public art possible master plan? Or is there another committee?
No, it would be within this committee under the cultural policy,
Okay.
and cultural plan. Yeah, and I think just to kind of sum it up, it would be, we've got the cultural plan, we've identified that we want to activate the downtown, we want to bring in more art. This is now a much more detailed step-by-step on how we're going to do that over a 5 or 10 year period. So it's really breaking it down into a lot more smaller tasks. So we have a very specific strategic plan for adding art into the community, what those locations are, and the types that we're going to be moving forward with.
So here's an example of a public art master plan, and I'm happy to forward this to committee members as well. This is what was put together by the city of Mississauga. So we can, well, this is the executive summary. I'm not really equipped to present the plan to you, but we can see some of the outlines of the background, identification of certain natural features within the city that should be considered, aspects of major throughways, intersections with transit, places where there's higher intensity of or housing density, I should say. So those are all sort of contextual pieces, and then some descriptions of what's entailed by public art, and then we see descriptions of the mission, guiding principles for creating public art. We see the identification of different public art zones and curatorial themes. Now, just because the city of Mississauga has done it in this way does not mean that this is the only way to do a plan of this nature, but it's just to illustrate what a public art master plan can do and what it may look like. So there's a huge chunk of this is really looking at this chapter 4, operating and implementation of the framework, right? So how public art gets selected, chosen, implemented, and so on. Different areas for its that have been flagged for priority. I think this also speaks to something that I recall you raising a while ago, Larry, as well, just in terms of ensuring that public art has a footprint across the city. In any case. And then there's specific recommendations and phases. And as Virginia said, a lot of this is about being clear about well, where the city wants to go with public art, which also makes it easier to access additional funding. And if additional funding were to be secured, knowing concretely where it would go. Yeah, so I'm happy to share this, and we can probably find some other examples. But I don't mean to.
Sean?
Yes. Oh, Donna, you're here.
Sean,
Great.
it's Donna. I'm here. Yes, I'm here. May I just, I caught the tail end of what you were saying.
Yeah.
Could I just, I don't know if I'd be adding or if you said it earlier, but if I could just say a couple words.
Please do.
So thank you very much. So to me, this strategy is about implementation, right? It's like, it's one thing to have the public art policy itself, and that, public art is important and so on, but we don't have any type of a strategy in place that says how we're going to implement it and what it's going to look like and what we're going to do. And I think in the absence of that, it's going to be, you know, we're not going to be able to prioritize it, and we're not going to be able to fund it. And if we can't do any of those things, if we can't get that, whether we fund it through city dollars or whether we fund it through other money, that whether it's a combination of private money or private and public money or grants or these other things, you know, it's like having that shovel ready project that when the federal government comes out and says, you know, we're going to invest in recreational infrastructure, we can say, okay, here's our plan. And that's why I'm hoping that we all feel strongly about, is that this type of an undertaking would then say, this is our plan, this is what's important, these are the priorities, and here's how we're going to get it done.
Thanks, Donna.
That was all I wanted to clarify. Okay.
Oh, no problem. Any additional comments, questions, or I see in the chat, Miranda notes, also a great promotional and informational tool for community members looking for more information about what public art is and what it looks like in the city. Thank you. Any other, Heather, then Larry.
Thanks for putting the plan, that sample plan for Mississauga, because that was a really good understanding of what this item is. It's a great idea. I agree. You need have the policy, but we definitely need a plan, because that's how things will get done. And how, you know, and we want to see public art be put around the city. So, and I like, and it also holds accountability too, of not just having this policy, but this is the who, what, where, and how we're going to do it. So I think it's a great idea.
Thanks, Heather. Harry.
Yeah, I can see that this is a good idea, because you read a policy, then people wonder, how do you go about it? So that we're not reinventing the wheel. I'd be very interested in seeing what the policies and implementation plans are, or the implementation parts of other municipalities in Ontario who are nearly the same size. North Bay, Kingston tends to be fairly progressive in the arts. I think the Mississauga one, it was very glossy, but it's a big city. Mm-hmm. It really is a big city. So, and then I had a question, you know, is it a matter of having art spread even-handedly at important places or appropriate places across the community? That seems to me to be one area. The other area is, well, what about city properties that, you know, I get reminded of the big brouhaha over the sculptures at the John Rhodes some years ago. Are we responsible for giving our 2 cents on public art at a community, you know, City of Sault Ste. Marie buildings or locations, such as the new square that's going to be in the Brock Street area, or the arena out in the West End, or there might be a library, or, you know, goodness knows what. Questions? So, sorry.
No need to apologize. Very thoughtful questions, and important ones. Any other thoughts, comments? Katie.
If we're doing a temperature check, I think this is a great idea. We have a really, like, our community, we're making such an effort to revitalize the downtown core, and we have these wonderful spaces. And I think by bringing art to them, it adds an element of real, like, life, right? It brings communication and conversation pieces to the downtown. And I think this is wonderful.
Thanks, Katie. So if I'm reading the room correctly, I gather there's significant interest in this. There are, of course, the questions that would remain to be answered by the plan, right? And Larry, you've done a great job of highlighting some of those questions. I would try to answer them, but I don't have any answers. And I think that that's part of what would be determined, you know, maybe in combination by the committee and, well, 3 different pieces I would envision. You know, there's our own 2 cents from within the committee. There's public input into the role that they see us playing in relation to art, and then of course the direction of council. So I'm curious. I would ask Virginia, Alicia, or Kathy for your advice as to whether is it premature for us to strike a subcommittee, or is a subcommittee the best approach to move this forward, or should we gather more information first? What's your?
I think it'd be helpful if we could gather a bit more information and kind of come back. I don't know, I'm going to guess that a lot of these municipalities had a consultant help assist in the preparation of the plan. So it'd be nice to be able to have an idea on, what methodology different municipalities used. And, to Larry's point, did similar size ones try to do it in-house? Were they all generally consultants that assisted in the completion of these plans? So it'd be helpful, I think, if we could do some research and bring that back and have some discussions with city staff for the next meeting. If that's, Donna, do you have any additional thoughts on?
No, Virginia, I think that's a good place to start. And if we can get it back for the next meeting, we can keep this moving ahead. I'm really happy to hear that people are finding this valuable.
Right. All right. Do we need a motion to that effect, or is that?
I don't think so.
Not, eh?
Yeah. We'll go off and do some homework and try to pull together some additional examples, and doing comparative of similar size municipalities as well as some of the larger ones, and bring that back kind of as a summary document for the committee to take a look at, and then we'll figure out what the next steps are from there.
Oh, that's fantastic. Hey, Larry, go ahead.
The minutes can reflect that there was a consensus that. That's just shy of a resolution.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks to you all. Oh, and I see Miranda also added in the chat. Love this sample and seeing opportunities within it for local artists' renderings of maps and graphics. Very, very interesting opportunities. Yes. All right. So it sounds like we've completed this this item. Thank you, Councillor Hilsinger, for bringing this forward, and also to the staff for the work that you're going to be doing here. All right. Next item on the agenda is traffic wrap program evaluations. Virginia, could you speak to this? Because I see there's a resolution attached as well.
Yeah, so in the past, when we've done Pall Mall and different initiatives in the past, we've had a committee member that's generally assisted with the review of the artwork that's being selected. So in this case, it would be the professors at the college, as well as city staff, and hopefully one committee of the Cultural Vitality Committee might be interested in participating in the review and selection of the designs.
Wonderful. Is there interest from any committee members to sit on the Traffic Wrap Program Evaluation Committee? Heather? Very good.
So yeah, if I could have a mover and a seconder then.
Great. Moved by Miranda, seconded by Jordan. Any other nominations? I don't know if we have to do that here. We'll proceed unless anyone objects. So all those in favor, please remain silent. Anybody opposed or abstaining, please indicate so in the chat or open your mic to express your intent. Be it resolved that the Cultural Vitality Committee appoint Heather Bott to assist in the review of the traffic wraps design. Thanks very much, Heather. Thank you. Next, we have Acap grant applications. So a reminder here that our late intake applications are due March 25th, which is a little over a month away. So anybody out there watching, please make sure that you get those applications in. Also get in touch with Alicia because from experience, the more you connect with the granting officer, the stronger your application will be. They are there to help you. They're not trying to put up roadblocks. They're trying to help you create a strong application, as strong as it can be. So there's no tricks. It's really just a matter of seeing how the project that you wish to pursue can fit within the criteria. Is there any other item in relation to the Acap grant applications that we wanted to address? Virginia, was there any more information there?
No, I think we've been working through the application. We did realize that it is long and it's cumbersome for committee members. So we're still trying to find a software program that would be a little bit more intuitive than the PDF file. So we're working with our IT department on that, hopefully to have that revised. It'll probably be for the next round in the fall. But Alicia is looking at trying to do a summary page for each one that has all the pertinent information so that you have a good at-a-glance sheet to give you a good overview of the project, but then you'll still have the additional information there as backup if you want to dive into look more at some of the other areas of the application that may not be in the summary. And we're hoping that that might help facilitate and make it easier for committee members to review.
Thanks, Virginia. Discussion, any, see a thumbs up from Katie, thank you. Any discussion on this item? If I may, first of all, wanted to acknowledge the information that Alicia has put in the chat. So anybody watching, if you can't see the chat, and I don't think you can, contact Alicia Moore at a.moore, which is MOORE, at cityssm.on.ca. So that's how to reach out to Alicia. The second item is, I think I had committed, and maybe we've already covered this and my memory has just evaporated, but when we did the evaluations last time, we spent a lot of time establishing the process. What we could do beforehand is I could summarize the process that we used, have it written, I can write it out, and then of course we can bring it for discussion if there's any revisions, but just so that that's clear before we begin the evaluation process, so that I know that everyone's time is valuable. I don't want to rebuild the wheel every time we go through that process. Would that be something that the committee members would like to do? I see some thumbs up, some consent. Okay, so I will draft a description of what we did, and omitting the mistakes from the first time, then of course we'll bring it for discussion before the review happens, so that if anybody wants to change some of the ways that we've done so, we can have that discussion ahead of time. All right. Any other items for discussion under the Acap grant applications? Larry.
Yeah, I was kind of bothered. This may not be appropriate, and you may be going to address it, or maybe it's better to talk about it after you've given your summary. But I found that, we did all this reading and we ranked, and then we started jimmying with it, so that what happened had little bearing on much of the reading. And I thought, gee, why did I spend 2 days and have big headaches over reading through all this stuff? And then the second thing was, I can't. Yeah, a couple of times I made comment about some of the groups and why generally it had nothing to do with what was written in their application, but why they merit in the context of what they do in the city. I think one of them was the symphony, for example. Why do we need a symphony in the city? The outlying thing. Reason for supporting the arts. I have a lot of contact and years of relationships and knowledge over the city. That's why I joined the committee, arts, performing arts particularly, but also, the other arts. And I thought that's what I could give to the community. Rather than being held in the four corners of these applications, which I did take seriously. The project itself that's being funded, that's totally valid to look at that. But I can't divorce myself and my knowledge of the people and what they do and their importance in the community. So if I got to be mum about it, if I can't think about it, I'm just going to go. I'll get off the committee because I'm not going to be of any use to you. So those are some of the issues that I was concerned about. And the other thing is we don't have enough money to maybe do it, but there are certain key infrastructure arts in the community. If we lost the Comedy Guild, for example, or we lost, we can go through the list. I don't want to, make it, but you get where I'm going, that if one of those is in danger, they merit to be supported. I'm just kind of spouting out my ears, but those are some of the issues that I was a bit concerned about. We don't have to talk, I don't want to talk about it in detail, but I hope that someday we might talk about it.
Oh, sure. No, absolutely, Larry. I'm sorry that that you felt those constraints. Sorry, I don't mean to jump in. Any other comments or questions? Katie?
I think just a comment that all of us could probably agree with is there's a lot of very worthwhile organizations and projects, and we just don't have enough money, like in general. So I think that was one of the most challenging parts, is going through and deciding, like, how do you distribute the money in a fair and equitable way when there are so many worthwhile causes. And I'm just very happy that we're going to be asking for more money. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, thanks very much, Katie. Any other comments? Heather?
I think we all feel that way, is that there's a lot of great projects that were brought forth in the first round that it was very difficult to say no, or we had to take from some to give to someone else. I found the last round, like, we had 2 meetings. It was very, very difficult to make decisions. So yeah, like, we all feel that. And a lot of things that Larry said, like, I agree. Yeah.
Any other comments?
Sean, it's Donna.
Yes.
I just want to respond slightly to, and I think I'm thinking this through clearly, but we can see, to what Larry said about, like, having that organizational history and community history and all of that. I think that having been involved in numerous types of ways of having to rate things, whatever they might be, over the years, and make selections as a result of that, I personally don't think that we have to divorce ourselves, if you will, of those things that we know because of our own previous, work in the community or previous relationships or whatever. I think that if we some of us have those things, some of us don't. And the only way to get those things is to start participating, right? So we're all at different places in our life and we've all contributed in different ways. And some of us have done certain things, et cetera. But my point, I think, is that knowing or not knowing should not have to be separated from, or I don't believe it should have to be separated from how you rank something or rate something. We're using a set of criteria, but this is where our own history and experience, there's a the important thing is it's consistent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we apply it consistently across all of the projects that we rate. And so, you know, ours may rate higher, ours may rate lower, or whatever it is. But as long as members of and we know I have not participated in this particular one, but as long as members, we know we've consistently applied our whatever we're bringing to the table across all of that, it should come out in the wash, right? But I don't know if there's I'm not sure if that satisfies Larry, if that satisfies your thinking or makes you feel any better about, you know, being able to include those relationships in your thinking, as long as you're applying the criteria that is created as part of the program, because that's what everybody that's on that monitoring or measuring committee has to do in the first place, right? I don't know. Did I just make any sense? I'm not sure.
Oh, I think so, but we'll go to Larry. He's ready to respond.
It's a hard thing to express and to put your thumb on. But if our committee has the pulse of the community in all of the various arts, our own individual experiences and perspectives go into the mix. And when whatever the rating may be, I accept that. That's fine. I accept everybody's experience. But then let's apply the ratings and, you know, proportionately or something like that, so that we're not. It's hard. I can't say it any more clearly. But I think. You know, the committee is enriched and the community is enriched by our cumulative experiences. And you know, we might. You know, many of us may not have any idea. Great experience in heritage. So somebody that has experience in the heritage would say, well, this is why this is important, and this is the light in which I looked at that application, and where I see it in the mix of arts in the community, and maybe it's been ignored a little bit, or maybe because of the pandemic, we happen to know that they're in peril. And, you know, those things could be important. But I think with our collective wisdom, I worked with juries for years. There's only one I thought that was wrong. But there is power in our cumulative and combined experiences and wisdom. And I have great faith in it. So I think it's a really important part. I know we've got the applications and the ratings and all that, and I agree that it's got to be done, and you know, but when it's done, and we apply it, but we apply it fairly and proportionately. We don't jimmy it and this and that.
Jordan.
Yeah, I agree. I think the problem that we had last time around was we had our scale kind of set, but we didn't have any of our like boundaries and cutoffs and anything like that in terms of like allocation. So I think that's why we were kind of like playing it by ear and kind of going with the flow. But I think now that we have that knowledge moving forward to this round, I think it would be important to make sure we have that meeting prior, like you stated, and, you know, have our cutoffs ready, have in mind like how our rating has to be applied in order to allocate the limited amount of money we have appropriately. And I think that just comes down to really, you know, making sure that we plan in advance and we have everything prepared so that we aren't wasting time when it comes to the main portion, so that we can really effectively apply those scores.
Thanks, Jordan. I'm going to put myself on the speakers list here too, just to build on what Jordan has said and also respond to some of the points that Larry has brought up. I think you raise a really good point, Jordan. Part of our difficulty, and where I feel like you might be talking about jimmying, Larry, is in response to where we place those cutoffs, reevaluating marks, those sorts of things. And I think having that clear process will that we agree to before we even see the applications will really help make that very fair. I'm wondering also if part of where you feel like your experience might not have been honored is in a lot of attention was focused on ensuring that we were speaking directly to the applications rather than the applicants. The rationale for that, of course, I mean, I don't mean to, first of all, correct me if I'm wrong in interpreting your comments this way, but the rationale for that was that some of us may have insights into some of the applicants, but not necessarily all of them. So so part of that is an aspect of fair assessment to ensure that those well-established organizations are not necessarily, I mean, they will have an advantage because you get an advantage with experience, but that their assessment isn't unfairly advantaged over newcomers who might not be as well connected within the community and so forth. But I think there's a good middle ground that could be assessed there, or sorry, that could be reached there. Anyway, that's my thought. Jordan?
Yeah, I totally agree. And now that you brought that up, I was thinking about that earlier. I think this just brings forth the importance of declaring a conflict if you have those personal feelings about an applicant or the application in general, right? Like perspectives on an application are totally okay, but when those personal feelings and beliefs come in about based off of insider knowledge, that's when it gets unfair. But I just wanted to say that I totally understand Larry's frustration from the last round, because I was sitting watching last time. I wasn't involved and I didn't go through that entire evaluation process. So, taking the time and going through and giving all those scores based off of, assessment, and then those being like thrown, almost like not thrown out the window, but majorly changed, is totally understandable. And I see where he's coming from there.
Any other thoughts or comments? I see none. I just note in the chat, Kathy noted, I assisted in being a resource to applicants last round and can be again. Oh, great to know for anybody watching. Pre-application and helping with the evaluation, working on a list and Excel spreadsheets. I also have some thoughts on details for cleaning up and helping make the system a bit more slick for next year. Great. Thanks, Kathy. All right, any last call for anybody who wants to speak to Larry? Go for it. You are muted, just so you know.
Darn. I think I would be happy if after we're done all the ratings, because I think the rating thing was good. It was hard work, but when we've done it, the mix is there. All our collective views are there. If we keep the rating, but apply it proportionately to the amount of money that we have, I'd be happy, because I'd feel that my rating, my work was in relation to what everybody else has done was good, and that the mix is being applied, and that's fair. You know, we've had a lot of minds put to this, and from all our perspectives and so on. So I'd have been quite happy with that. Maybe the real problem here is money. You know, that's the elephant in the room. But to deal with the little money that we've got fairly, I think that's the way to go.
Well, that's really helpful advice, Larry. I'm also reminded last time we had a number of committee members who hadn't submitted ratings, which complicated that discussion. So this time, I think, you know, clearing up this process ahead of time, making sure those ratings are established beforehand. You know, it doesn't have to be weeks and weeks beforehand. I don't mean to say that, but just enough time that staff can plug them into the system so that we can see them as such. All right. Any other comments, questions? No. All right. We can move on to the next item on the agenda, which is correspondence. Although for correspondence, is there any correspondence, Kathy and Virginia?
Sorry, I was just gonna, we had added 6.4 cultural tourism plan.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Cultural tourism. Who would like to speak to?
I can give a bit of an update. So this was, I had a chance to talk to Donna quickly today. So to provide the committee with an update, through tourism, they had released an RFP to have a cultural tourism plan prepared. A number of interviews and outreach has been done with stakeholders, and they're in the process of sending a final draft of the plan. So I did have a chance to talk to Travis today. So there should be something that I'll be able to share with the committee potentially at the March meeting. So hopefully we'll have something at that point, and I'll be able to let everybody take a look, and then we can get some comments. So I think Kathy did you participate from the Old Stone House with the initial interviews? No?
Actually, this is the first time I've heard of this, so I can't comment.
Okay.
Virginia, it's Donna.
Yes.
Kathy, are you sure? Because I know it was a while ago that I remember talking with them. Like I want to say maybe a year, but I might be off on my timing. So it was, and I don't remember the gentleman's name that we spoke to, but I thought that you were part of that. Maybe I'm getting confused with something else.
It was quite a while ago. You're correct, Donna. Like, it's not been in the last few months that there's been any consultation. It was going back quite some time ago.
Maybe it would depend on who the consultants were too.
Yeah, I don't recall anything either. And you know, the cultural corridor people, we had meetings, nobody ever mentioned anything.
I'm sure that Virginia, I'm sure there's a list of who they spoke to. I think well, okay, anyways, we can figure that out. But thank you. I'm glad we're getting the update. Sorry to have interrupted. I just thought I could jog someone's memory, but maybe not.
I don't consider that an interruption. I think it was the natural course of discussion. Larry.
Very important topic. It's one of great frustration in Sault Ste. Marie for the last 50 years at least, I can attest to. And if we can develop and find a way to attract people to the community for cultural events, God bless. So whoever is tied into this, you know, get your boots on and attack.
Thanks, Larry.
I got lots of stories, but I won't bend your ear.
So I think we'll follow up with seeing just who's been included in that so far. And Virginia, if I understand correctly, the consultants will be drafting something for further comment. Is that correct?
As far as I understand, yeah, that's the update I got from Travis.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Any other comments? No? Okay. So the next item on the agenda is correspondence. Has there been any correspondence to the committee?
No new correspondence.
Great. The next item on the agenda is next meeting. So March 16th, mark it off in your calendars. The same time, 4:30. And usually it's the week prior, an invitation goes out for those of you who are like me and super dependent on your computer calendar. Larry, yeah.
Is it always the same meeting ID and password?
Oh, I don't know.
Not necessarily. It depends. If it's in a series, it may be, but there'd be a different one, I think, for every month. So you want to make sure you click on that month's link.
So could I suggest that you not put that we get a link if you're going to send out a link to join the meeting, or the password and ID number, that it be done as a reminder during the week of, because I don't know about the rest of you, but I get a gazillion, pieces of email and spam and crap, and it's impossible to find something when you look back a month or so. A lot of organizations, the courts, for example, have the same password and same meeting ID number, which makes life pretty easy.
Yeah, I think for us, it just depends on how it sets up in Zoom. It's auto-generated for us. So I think sometimes if it's a series, it may be the same. If it's not in that series, then it just auto-generates. And I don't think that's something we can control that I'm aware of.
Just so we get a reminder, either get a link the week during the week before, or the ID and password number. If you got those two things, you can get in.
Yeah, and I think everybody should have received it this Friday, I think, when we sent it out.
Is that a good time frame, Larry?
Yeah.
Perfect. Great. Wonderful.
But interestingly enough, I had to struggle for 10 minutes to find it. I didn't know whether to look under Virginia's name, under Alicia's name, under Todd's name. I finally found it under cultural vitality.
That's what I started searching too. Yeah. But that one I think is fail safe. It will always be the cultural vitality. Well, unless we change the name of the committee, but that's Jordan.
I access it right from my calendar. Like whenever I get the invite, it goes right to my Google Calendar, and then I just click on, and the link is always in that thing. That's what I access it from. So if that's helpful at all, I just look on the calendar and then I click on the time slot, and then it gives me the Zoom link in there, and I click on that.
Sometimes that works for me, and sometimes it doesn't. And the sender can direct it to your calendar. I have no idea how it's done. I mean, I'm lucky I can do this. So,
Well, we're grateful that you do. All right. Any other discussion on the next meeting?
I would just have one thing, Virginia. I was wondering if next meeting we could discuss the Youth Art Gala, because I know the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council is planning that, and I believe we have a date sometime in May at the Old Stone House. So if maybe we can discuss that and kind of just update this committee about that.
I can put that on the agenda, Jordan.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jordan. That's really great to hear about. All right. So the next item on our agenda is adjournment. could I have a mover to adjourn? Moved by Larry, seconded by Miranda. All those in favor, please remain silent. Anybody opposed or abstaining, indicate so in the chat or open your mic. Motion carries. Always a pleasure to see you all.
Au reservoir, tout le monde.
Have a great
Hi,
night.
everyone.
Bye.
Care.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye.